Hi everyone, welcome to part 5 of this hybrid platforms trend series talking about taming cloud complexity into the future in combination with Cisco and Nutanix. Hopefully you've watched the previous videos now and you've got a good understanding of what this joint platform can deliver from a technology perspective. What we're going to do in this video is look at what are the outcomes that delivers and what are the applications and workloads that we can run on that platform. And then I'm going to get some top tips from our experts here about how can you start this journey yourself. What's the best way to embark on the journey? So guys, we've spent 4 videos now. We've set out the problem. We've defined the architecture from an infrastructure layer, from a cloud software layer, from an operations layer, from a simplicity of joint engineering, etc. So customers, everyone listening has got this great view of what we can deliver from a technology perspective. But I think it's worth spending some time on what does that actually mean? Yeah, so it's great. It's a whole bunch of technology. What does that actually allow a customer to do and the value and benefit they get from it? Because at the end of the day, that's the bit that really matters when we're having these conversations. So I think there's 2 parts to this in my world. What is it we can now run on top of this platform in any location? And the any location is important. And the second part then is, what does that mean from a business outcomes perspective? So I'm going to come to you first, Darren, if you may, and say, what does this joint ecosystem allow a customer to actually run? Because traditionally that would have been a virtual machine.
Yeah.
But that's a very limited part of that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't really need to be looking at that granular level of just a virtual machine because it's all about services and actually what's been provided to an organization internally or even externally to be consumed. So we could be talking about end user computing for our call centers. It could be, as unfortunately the buzzwords are today, AI, ML, having a platform that's capable of scaling out incredibly quickly to meet the needs of these huge data sets which are moving along. What about database as a service? That's something that's really going hand in hand with our container world at the moment. We're starting to see a great rise in that as well. Virtual machines still predominantly are the big thing out there today. And just actually, Neil, VMs we do see a lot of in our customer conversations. People are moving from these kind of legacy traditional data center architectures. How do you see that from the Cisco point of view?
I would say that as it stands at the moment, Darren, it's still predominantly a VM-driven world, regardless of what's been out and reported out in the industry press. However, what I would say is, for net new applications, it's the world of containers.
Right.
It's containers, it's Kubernetes, it's perhaps microservices, although microservices aren't necessarily the kind of the answer to everything. But it's certainly a more of a containerized view of the world. But VMs will be there for a long time to come in whatever shape or form that they take. But I think it's critical in terms of what you're articulating. It's back to that idea of choice. If it needs to be a VM, it can be a VM on the platform, container. If it's database service, whatever it can be, the platform allows it to do that.
Yeah, I think that choice is the really important message to take out of this, because is it that I need to run a VM with a traditional SQL database in it? Or do I need a MongoDB or MySQL database because that's the direction of travel from there? Do I need to run a traditional database workload next to a modern application so I got low latency interconnect? Yeah. Do I need large data stores for object store, etc.? There's so many facets, but actually I think the value is that choice. Yeah. Once I've deployed this platform, I can activate then different services and transition to the new ones where appropriate. So maybe on day 1 it is 1,000 VMs, but on day 2 it's 500 VMs and a bunch of containers. Maybe on day 1 it's all Oracle databases, and later on it's all MySQL or Postgres or whatever. It's that choice and flexibility. Back to I think something you said in the very first video, Darren, which is if someone started on a trajectory and a strategy, having to tell the board they've changed, is potentially career limiting. Whereas if you've actually built a platform that can adapt, you can pivot without having to worry about the commercial and strategic impact of that. And I think that's a really important message for the value of the workloads that come on top of that. But Neil, I wanted to get your view from a more sort of operational layer or from a business angle as well. We've talked about some of the bits that the techies will get. What does the business get from adopting a platform like this? Because at the end of the day, that's the bit that's going to unlock the value and then any potential investment in this technology.
Absolutely. And you're right, Robert. We have to always remember that investing in IT and IT functionality is the same investment decision as opposed to an organisation who wants to set up another 30 bricks and mortar, shops, for instance. They need to be perceived the same way, so they have to generate an outcome. One of the things that continues to be talked about from a business perspective is this idea of agility. The idea that you can, as your business model changes. McKinsey came out with something back in 2017 that we're in this state of a perpetual evolution. And perpetual is a bit of a strong word, but we are having to change very rapidly. And back to Darren's point around this idea of, you've set out your stall, you've gone to the board, you've got that original investment decision, and 18 months later, that investment decision is now hampering the ability for the business to change direction. So I think that idea of operational agility is really important without having to completely redesign and start from scratch. And the other piece is around this idea of operational resilience. We're seeing a lot more focus now, particularly in things like the financial services industry, where there's regulation coming out. But I think all organisations post-pandemic, and due to that period we went through around electricity security concerns, it's not enough anymore to just have disaster recovery or business continuity plans, because those are reactive. You need to engineer resilience throughout your operations. And that's difficult to do if you don't have a kind of consistent, coherent platform architecture that underpins that. So you've got the visibility, you've got the mechanisms to control and automate. I don't know what you think, Darren, around that.
Yeah, so definitely the business angle I'm going to pick up on, because we're finding that the conversations of the IT need is coming from business leaders now. Whereas we've rolled back to many years ago, IT tried to tell the business what they wanted. It was all about science projects. Oh, there's this new technology. Wow, we want that. And they'll find a use for this thing. But of course, it was just things being cobbled together. And then when the business said, we need to do this, nothing worked at all. So business now, I hear, is driving IT rather than the other way.
And that simplicity then, that consistency of delivery allows that IT function to react to the business needs at a pace that can allow the business to innovate, differentiate whatever it needs to do, and to drive its new revenue streams, etc. So that makes sense. Yeah. Cool. So hopefully, I guess everyone has now a view of here's the platform, here's what we can run on it, here's some of the outcomes that it can help deliver from a business level. I'm going to give you a challenge now, 30 seconds only. What is your top tip for people listening to get started on this journey? What's the one thing they should go and do now that could make a difference and start them on that journey? And I'll come to you first, Neil.
Come and have a test drive. So between Cisco and Nutanix, we built on Cisco's kind of track record of test drives, where you can come in, spend time with somebody who is knowledgeable about both sides of this equation as it's combined together. It's a zero-risk environment, and you can get a sense for what that new platform is like. What are the features, the functionality? Compare and contrast to what you're currently using, to give you just a better feel and a better sense about the direction of travel that you might take. And then that gives you that option to then ask the right questions when it comes to do perhaps a more detailed follow-up, or, I don't know, Darren, perhaps something like a proof of concept or a small...
Yeah, definitely. It's something we spoke about in one of the previous videos around how we know that businesses will find it hard to deal with process and change. So let's not go big bang.
Absolutely.
As you say, we'll have a test environment with just a unique project in one corner to prove how it can work. And that way then people get interested. And that way it's accepted. And the impact potentially to a business, that change, maybe the education needs or whatever, it's only minimal. And the business goes, oh, okay, we'll accept that. It's a new project, we'll work with that. And then it will grow. And we've seen great success with finding a niche project and then just expanding out. It's very much a Nutanix story, as we built up over the years anyway.
It's that sort of land and expand, build confidence and credibility story. Right. Yeah. So what we're saying is come and take a test drive to understand, but then find a specific targeted use case that could trigger the first investment, that could allow you to then prove it. Therefore, it doesn't become a revolution. It's the evolution piece that we've been talking about through the piece. Yeah.
And don't just get a whole bunch of different vendors on a desk and just compare them and tire kick, because you're not actually achieving anything. There's nothing valid in what you're doing there at all.
No, that makes sense. And I think from my perspective, I think organisations need to take a step back in this as well and say, what's the business outcome we're looking for from that particular workload or application, and where will I get the most value from that? And make sure then we're deploying in the right place, rather than just following the hype, which is we have to pick it all up and put it somewhere else. And I think if one thing's come out through the series is that if I just pick a workload up and move it from point A to point B, nothing different's going to happen. Just because it was hard to manage on-prem doesn't mean it'll be suddenly easy to manage in the cloud if I don't change the operating model that goes around that. So I think that's where people have to take that step back, be brave, challenge the norms, challenge the hype, and do what's right for their business, whatever that happens to be. And I think that's where actually it's great to be part of CDW, is the fact that we have this independent voice in the market. So we're not tied to any one vendor. Yes, we're here talking to you guys right now, but that could be something else tomorrow, something else the day after. What is important to us is what's right to the customer. So we'll actually listen, we'll take all them requirements down, we'll cut through the noise effectively and do what I call is we provide this opinion without bias effectively, so customers can get a real view of what needs to be done. I think that combination power then is really, really important for customers, especially when you combine it with our ability for procurement, supply chain, pre-config, shipping, tax, logistics, all of that sort of stuff. So we're combining that business outcome piece that we're focused on, the technical output of all of our SE communities that can help customers deliver the technical outcomes, and then CDW's ability to deliver that from a supply and fulfillment perspective. I mean, that's a great superpower when you look at it as a combined output. So guys, thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon. Thanks everyone for listening to this Hybrid Platforms Trend Series on taming cloud complexity in conjunction with Nutanix and Cisco. Hopefully now you've got a really good understanding of how we're approaching this space, some of the challenges we can solve, some of the outcomes we can deliver. If you want to know more, there's an email address below that you can contact us on, or please reach out to myself or Darren or Neil to talk from a more strategic level. But if you're ready to get your hands on, then give us a call. Let us know and we can deliver you a test drive. We can let you get hands-on with the technology and start to see the reality of the things we've been talking about, so that it isn't just us saying it, you can actually experience it in real life. Hope to speak to you soon, and thanks for listening.